Welcome back to Snippet Coder, and we are back in our video. In this video, we will learn how to create REST API for our register and login screen for our grocery app series by using Node.js. So here you can see we have the Swagger here. Inside the Swagger, we have created the user API, and there we have two APIs. First one is for register API, and there we are getting three parameters from our user for doing the registration in our application. And the first parameter is our full name, then we have our email ID, then we have our password, and on the basis of that it will create the user in our database. So now let's try here. Here we will put our username as a ram, and email ID we will put here ram@outlook.com, and the password we will put here 123456. Then we will click on the execute. You can see here we are getting success. Inside that we are getting the data which we have added, and there we are getting full name, email ID, then we are getting here user ID of that particular user. Then again, if we try to enter the same email ID, we will get the validation also. Here we are getting email ID already registered. So we have used our register API. So now we will use this email ID and we will test it with our login API. And there we have to put the email ID, and the email ID we have put here is ram@outlook.com. The password we have added there 123456, and first we will put the invalid password. Now we will click on that execute. So here you can see we are getting invalid email or password. So now we will put the valid password here, and now we will click on the execute here. You can see here we are getting message as a success. Then we are getting the data here. Inside the data we are getting full name, email ID, user ID, then we are also getting the token here. So on the basis of this token we are going to use in our cart API, in our orders API, and other API which require the authentication. There we are going to use this token. So before starting the video, if you are new to our channel, subscribe the channel by clicking the subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you. So in our Node.js API, we are going to use two packages. First one is our bcrypt.js, and this package will be used for encrypting our password and all. And the second package which we are going to use in our application is JSON web token, and this package will be used for generating the token when we do the login in our application, and that we are just passing our token to the user. So now let's move to our Node.js application, and from there we will just install these two packages. So we will open our terminal, and from here we will run the command npm i bcrypt.js, and it will install the package, and we will put here --save. So here in our package.json you can see that package has been added. So now let's add the second package also. So now the second package also has been added in our application. So now we will just add our model file, and that model file name will be user.model.js file. Here first of all we will import our mongoose. Constant mongoose is equal to require mongoose, and here we have to import schema is equal to mongoose. Here we have to create our model for the user. Constant user is equal to mongoose.model. Here we have to add the name of the model, and this will be user. Then we have to add here mongoose.schema. Here we have to remove this curly brackets, and in the schema we have to add that variables for this schema, and the first one is a full name, and the type will be string, and required we will make it as a true. Then the second variable will be email, type will be string, and required will be true, and the unique we will make it as a true. Then we have to add the last variable, that is password, and the type will be string, required will be true. After this we have to just modify our JSON, and from there we have to just remove this password field, and we have to change that ID to our user ID, and here we will put to JSON, and this one we have to put inside our curly brackets. And from here we will just transform. Here we have function doc return, and from here we will return dot user ID is equal to return dot underscore ID dot toString. So what it will do, it will just add the new variable, that is user ID, in our JSON, and that user ID will be our ID of that particular user. And from here we will just delete our existing return dot underscore id, delete return dot underscore v, and this is also the variable which come in the JSON, that is also not required. And also we have to remove our password also, return dot password. So in the JSON model of this user, it will not return us the password. And after that we have to add one more variable, that is timestamp true. So it will add the timestamp to our model. And from here we will just export module dot exports is equal to user. It will export this user, and this one is not required. So what we did here, we have created a user model file, and there we have just added that variable for user, and there we are just passing the name as a user, and then we are creating the schema here. Inside the schema we are just putting the full name, email ID, password, and all these field type will be string, and we are making all the field as a mandatory. But in the case of the email, we are just making it as a unique so that user can't put a duplicate email ID over there. Then from here we are just transforming our to JSON, and from there we are just returning our user ID with our that ID, and then we are just deleting our this ID variable, that v variable, and the password variable from our JSON. And from here we are just adding that timestamp also as a true, and from here we are just exporting our user model. So now we will go to our middleware folder, and from there we will add the new middleware, that is auth.js. Here we will add auth.js, and this middleware will be used for generating our token and all, and that token, inside that token we will just append our user model, and in that user model we are just appending our user ID, that also that full name and the email ID of the user. And from here we will just import jwt is equal to require, and here we will use the package which we have added, JSON web token. And here we will create our function. Two functions we have to create. First function will be function authentication token, and this function will be used for validating the token which is coming in the required response. Then we have our next. Here we have to add constant auth header is equal to required dot headers, and here we have to check for our authorization header. Then we have constant token is equal to auth header and auth header dot split, and we will split it with our token which is coming in our barrier token and all, and we will pick the second value of the index. And here we will check if token is equal to null, we will return here response dot send status 401, and here we will validate jwt dot verify token, and here we can create any random key, and on the basis of that token secret it will check for our token is valid or not. And in that case we can just create any random key, and when we are generating the authorization token, and there also we can assign that key. Here we can put constant key is equal to random underscore key, and you can put any key over there, and we can put here token underscore key, and we will copy this variable name and we will put here. Then we have error user, and here we will check if error, then we will return here response dot send status 403, and the request user we will just assign this user, and we will call our next middleware. So what we are doing here, we have created one function authentication token, and this function will be used for authenticating our user token and all. And here we are just checking for that request headers, and then we have that token here. Token we are getting in our request header and with our barrier token and all. And here we are just checking here if the token is null, then we are returning here send status 401, and then we are just verifying here token with our key. Then we are just checking here if there is error, then we will send request 403, else we will just assign our request.user is equal to this user which is in our verify token and all that data. And here we have to create one more function generate access token, and here we will put the user model. From here we will return jwt dot sign in And from here we will call our sign function, and here we will just pass our data, and the data we are just passing our user model, and here we are just assigning the token key. Then here we are just putting our expired in. That means the token will be expired in 1 hour. We are putting here 1 hour. After 1 hour this token will be invalid. So what we are doing here, we have created a function for generate access token, and this function will be called whenever we do that user login and all, and from there we will check if the user is valid. Then we are just calling this function, and that function will just sign our JWT token, and it will return us the JWT token. On the basis of that, we are just also passing the data as a user model with this key we are using here, and that token expired in the 1 hour we are mentioning here. And from here we will just export our model.exports is equal to authentication token and generate access token. So our middleware is ready. So now let's move further, and then we will create our user services, and from there we will create the two functions. One is for our user registration, second one is for our user login. So now we will create our users.service.js file, and for that we have to go to our services folder, and there we will create new file users.service.js file. From here we have to import our model file first. Constant user is equal to require /models/user.model. Then we have to import bycrypt. This is a package which we have to use for encrypting our password and all, and here we have to put require bycrypt.js. Next one will be auth is equal to, and here we have to import our authentication middleware /middleware/auth.js, or we can put here auth. Here we have to create two functions. First function will be our async function login, and this will be used for logging to our application, and we have to pass two parameters. First one is the email, and the second one will be the password here. And here we have to put callback. Here we have to create one variable user model is equal to await user.find, and we have to pass here email ID. And here what we have to do, we have to just check with that email ID if that exists in our system or not. If that exists, then only we will proceed further, else we will not. And on the basis of that, we will just check for our password validation and all. Here we will check if user model not equal to null. Then here we will compare the password if bycrypt.compare sync password and user model dot password. What it will do, we are just going to call this function compare sync. We will pass the first parameter as the password which user is providing in the application, that we will compare with that user which we have found in our database, and we will match both the password. If that is correct, that means the user is valid, else we will return the error message that is invalid username or password. And here we have to create one more variable, constant token is equal to auth.generate access token, and if that password is validated, then we will just generate the access token for that user. And from here we will pass user model dot to JSON. From here we will return callback. The first parameter will be null. Then here we have to pass dot user model dot to JSON, and we will also pass a token. Then we will put here else condition. From here we will return callback null, and from here we will just pass the message here, message, and the message we will pass here invalid email /password. And here also in the else condition we will pass the same message. So what we are doing here, we have created one function that is async function of login, and we are just passing that two variables. First one is the email and second one is a password, and here the second parameter will be for our callback. Then here we are just creating one variable for user model, and we are just calling here with the await user.find, and it will check in our database if that email ID exists or not. If that exists, then we will proceed further, and then we will compare the password which we have user provided in the API with our user password in our database. If that is matched, that means that user is valid. Then we will generate our token here, and that token will be valid for only 1 hour. And if we go there, and here you can see we are just signing in our JWT token, and from there we are just passing our user model as a data, and on the basis of that token key we are just also providing here expired in, that is in next 1 hour it will going to expire that token and it will generate the token for us, and that token we are just returning to the user when they will be successfully logged into our application. In the else condition, we are just calling here invalid email ID or password. Here also we are just returning the same message here. So now we will proceed further and we will create one more function here. Here we will create async function register. Here we have params callback, and here we will check if params.email is equal to undefined. That means if user not provide any email ID, then we will return here the error message callback message email required. Then we will create one more variable, let is user exist, and this will be used for checking if that user exists in our system or not. If that user already exists in our system, we will return from here and we will throw the error message, that is email ID already registered. Here we have to call await user dot find one, and we have to pass here email, and here also we have to call the same find one in this function also. Then here in the register we will just pass our params.email, and we will check here if is user exists. Then from here we will just call our callback function email already registered. Then we have to create one variable constant salt is equal to bcrypt dot generate salt sync, and we are passing the round number as a 10. So what it will do, it will generate the random salt for us for our using that salt for our password and all. Then here we have to pass here params.password is equal to bcrypt dot hash sync, and we will put here params.password with our salt. So this will be the one-way encryption for our password, and on the basis of that salt and all, it will encrypt our password. So in the login function, you can see here we are just calling here compare sync, and we are just comparing our password which user provide with our existing password in our user model. Then we have to create that constant user schema is equal to new user, and we will provide all the params here. Then we have to call here schema dot save. Then from here we will check the response. If we are getting a response here, we will pass that response from here to our callback. From here we will return callback null response. And here for the catch error and all, we will pass here error. And here from here also we will return the callback here, and we will just pass here error message. So what we are doing here, we have created one function that is register, and there we are just passing two parameters. First one is a params and then second one is a callback, and here we are checking if that params.email is equal to null undefined, that means email ID is not provided. Then we will just pass here callback for our error message and all, email required. Then here we are checking here if that user exists or not on the basis of that email ID. If that user exists in our system, then from here we will return email already registered. After that we are just creating the salt here for our password. Then we are just updating our password with our hash sync function, that is from the bcrypt, and then here we are passing the password with our salt. Then from here we are just creating the user schema with our new user with our that parameters and all. Then we are just calling here user schema dot save. It will save the data in our database. Then we are just checking on that success. We are just calling here callback with the response, and the message will be null for the error, and the catch error and all is just passing the error here. And from here we will just export module dot exports is equal to, and we have to export both the function. So if in case we will not export this function, then it will be not accessible from another file from where we are going to use this user service file. And here we have register. So now we will move further, and now we will create a controller file. And for that we have to go to the controller folder, and from there we will create users.controller.js file. First we have to import constant user service is equal to require, and we have to import this service file services/user.service. Here we have to export exports.register is equal to required response next, and from here we will call our user service dot register function. From here we will pass request.body. Then we have error Then we have results here. From here we will check if error. Then from here we will return to our next middleware, and that error handling will be done at our middleware level and all. In the case of success, we will just call here else, and we will return here response.status 200.send, and we have to pass here message success, and the data we will just pass here results. So whatever result we are getting here. So what we are doing here, we have created one function for export.register, and here we have our request, response and next, and here we are calling user service.register, and from there we are just passing our request.body. Inside that body we have our parameter for full name, email ID and password. Then here we have the callbacks for the error and the results, and here we are checking if we are having any error. We will move to our next middleware with that error. In the else condition we will just call here response.status 200, that means response is success, and then we are just sending here message as a success, and data we are returning here results. Now we will create another function that will be used for the login and all. Here we have exports.login is equal to request response next, and here we have to create variable for email password, and we will pick it from our request.body. So whenever we put this variable name in our curly brackets, that means that variable name will be matching with this body. So we can also do in this way also. Constant email is equal to request.body.email. In this way also we can do. Instead of doing this, we can have the easy way by putting the variable name here, and we have to just put here request.body. Then we have to call here user services.login, and from here we will just pass here email password, and here we have our callbacks, error, results. From here we will check if error. We will move to our next middleware, return next error. In the else condition we will return here, or instead of putting here else condition, we can do in this way also, return, and from here we will return response.status 200.send, and we will pass here message as a success here, and the data we will pass here results. Same we will do for that our login function also. We will remove the else condition from here. So now our user controller file is also ready. So what we are doing here, we have created two functions. One is for the register and the second one is for the login. In the register we are just passing parameter as a request.body. Then we have the callbacks here, and we are checking here if there will be any error. We will move to our error handler, and by default we will just call here status 200 with the success message, and the data we are passing the result which we are coming from our services. Same we are doing for the login also. In the case of login we are just passing two variables, email and password, and then we have the callbacks here, and then we are doing the same way for checking for the error. If there will be error, it will be go to our next middleware, and here we are just passing our status code 200 in the case of success, and the message we are putting here success. Data we are just passing the data which we are getting from our request. So now we will move further and we will go to our app routing and all, and from there we will just add the endpoints. So in the case if we not provide that API endpoint in our app routing, in that case we will not able to access that API from our public and all, and that means that API is not accessible. So for that we have to go to our routes folder, and we have our app.routes.js file, and from here we have to add the two routes. First one is a router.post, and before that we have to just copy this controller and we have to paste here, and we will rename it to user controller, and here we will change it to users controller. And here in the post request we will put here /register, and we have to pass here user controller dot register. Then we have to copy again and we will paste here, and here we will change it to login, and this one also we will change it to login. So our API is ready. So now we will move further and we will modify our Swagger file also. For that we have to go to our swagger.js file. Here in the tags we have to add the tag for the user API, and we will just copy this tag and we will paste here, and we will rename it to users, and this one we will change it to users API. Then we have to go to our path, and from there we will add the new path, and from here we will add /API/register. Then from here we will add the post request post. Then we have to provide the tags here, tags, and we are going to use that users. Then we have the summary here, and we will put here register API. Then we have our parameters and we have to put the single parameter here. We will put here name register model. Then here for the in, that means from where we have to pick these variables, we will put here body. Then we have the description here. We will put here user registration. Then we have the required field and we will put as a true. That means this field is required. Then we have the type here. We have to tell what type of this variable will be. And we are putting here type as a object. Now here we have to give the schema for this variable. We have to give here the reference here, $, reference, and that we have to give from our definition. And here we will put definition / register model. And later on we will get this model. Before that we have to put the response also here. We will put here responses. Here we have 200 and we will put the description here. Okay. Then we have the schema and we have to give the same reference service response. Same we have to do for our login also. We will just copy this and we will paste here. Here we will change it to login. Here we will change it to login API, and this model name we will change it to login. Here we will put user login API, and this model we will change it to login. So now we have to go to the definition, and there we have to create two models. First one is for our login model and second one is for our register model. Here we have the definitions. We will put here register model. Here we will put required fields and we have to put all the field as a required full name. Second field will be our email and third field will be our password. And here we have to create the properties here. We put here full name, type will be string. Then we have to copy again. We will paste here 3 times and the second one will be email and third one will be our password. So this will be our register model and we will copy again. We will paste here and from here we will just remove the full name and name we will change it to login model, and here also we will remove that full name. So now our Swagger is also ready. So now let's test the application to see is it working or not. So now we will run our application, and for that we have to go to our terminal, and from here we will put node.js. So we are getting here database connecting. So now let's see in our browser. So from here we will run localhost 4000/API docs, and from here you can see here we are getting a Swagger. Here we have products category, then we have newly created API that is register and a login here. And if I click on the register here, we are not getting any model here. So now let's see what the issue is. In the case of the login also, we are not getting anything here. So now let's see in the code. So here seem to be the spell mistake and all. So now let's change that spelling. It's definitions. Same we have to do here also. And before that we have to put one / also here also. So now let's save and see is it working or not. So from here we will reload the application. So it is working, and also we are getting the error here, and here also we forgot to put the / and the name, and here also we have to change the name here. We will save it and we will reload here. So here we are not getting any error. So now we will go to our register API. Here still we are getting string, and we forgot to change the name here also, and we will put a /. We will reload the application now. So now we are getting here register API with all that parameters, full name, email and password. So now let's test it, and from here we will click on the try it out. From here we will put full name as a Raman, email ID we will put here raman@gmail.com, and the password we will put here 123456, and from here we will click on the execute. So here we are getting the success. That means our register API is working fine and without any issue. And again if we try to click on execute, so here we are getting the error also, email already registered. That means our API for our registration is working fine. So now let's try it with our login API with the same credential. Is it working or not? And from here we'll click on the try it out. In the email we will put here raman@gmail.com. And the password first we will put the invalid password to see. Here we are getting invalid username password. So now we will change the password here 123456, and from here we will click on the execute. So now you can see here we are getting the full name, email ID, user ID, token. In the token we are getting this token. So our registration and login API both are working fine and we are ready with that API. So in the next video we will cover that integration of this API with our Flutter application. So I hope you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, comment, share. I will come back to another awesome video. Thank you for watching the video.